Welcome to Was I in a Cult Part 42. Quick recap. I'm continuing my story about how my church falsely accused me of using drugs, then took me to the hospital to get a drug test, and then the hospital drugged me and put me in a drug rehabilitation unit. I know. It sounds crazy, right? It literally sounds like a movie, but this was real life for me. I got chemically restrained twice. The first was when I was in the ER and they said they were going to bring back the drug test. The nurse comes in and she's got something in her IV, and I'm asking her, what's in your IV? And she says nothing. It's just part of the test. I'm like, but there's something in your IV. What's in your IV? What are you giving me? And she said, like I said, it's nothing. She grabs my arm without my permission as I'm trying to tell her no, no, and then stabs me with the needle. I was clearly refusing, but she did it anyways. And clearly there was something in that needle, because I found myself feeling dizzy and blurry all of a sudden, and then felt like I was going to pass out. The second time they chemically restrained me was because I said I couldn't sign a piece of paper because I couldn't read it. Staff told me, you just need to sign here. Here's a pen, sign. I said, no, wait, I need to read it first. And then I couldn't read it. The letters were blurry. I couldn't see it. I was like, I've never needed glasses before in my life, but suddenly I can't even read this paper. They said, you don't need to read it, just sign it. I said, I'm sorry, but I don't sign things that I can't read. So they said, oh, so you want to refuse to sign? You don't want to be compliant? Okay. And then they grab another needle, poke me, and put me out again. Woke up the next day in a bed with different clothes on that I don't know how got on my body. I was so drugged that I couldn't feel anything. I didn't even know that I felt violated. Anything could have happened to me because I was completely out of it. I feel like I'm just retelling everything I said in the last video, but adding things that I forgot. But another thing that happened was that I had been put in solitary confinement. I think I talked about that in the last videos, so please go back and watch those. And there was 2 different times that I was put in solitary confinement. One because I was asking the nurses station, when can I go home? I want to go home, and said that I didn't belong there. And they told me to leave the nurses station, and I was like, well, I should have some patient's rights. And then as soon as I mentioned patient's rights, they did a takedown on me. 4 men drugged me to a room and sedated me with some more chemical restraints and put me to sleep for who knows how long again. And then one time they called meds and I didn't make it to the front desk, and so they came to me telling me it was time to take meds, and I said, I don't need the meds, and I was not on drugs when I got here, so I definitely don't want to be on them now. So because I refused medication, they again took me down a hallway, and 4 men wrestled me to the ground when I wasn't even trying to fight them, and again pinned me to the floor and drugged me again with another syringe. So apparently treatment for drug addicts is to drug them. I wasn't a drug addict, but I was being treated like one. Someone please tell me how they think that giving drugs to people who are getting off drugs is treatment. I don't get it. Basically, they just kept me asleep until they could send me to a psychiatrist. I have 2 theories of what went down. What I really think happened is that they believed the church people that brought me in there and accused me of using drugs in the first place, and they felt no need to actually drug test me because that would take some time and they would actually need to do their jobs. So instead, chemically restraining me and shutting me up to get me to the rehab unit, and then they could figure it out from there, is basically what happened. The other thought that I had was that this was back in 1996. I was 20 years old, and years later, about 10 years later, there was a time when they took Sudafed off of the shelves because, people were using it to make certain substances that were illegal and abused. So they decided that they had to be behind the counter and that they had to monitor how much of said medication was being given. At the same time, it was also stated and very clear that sometimes drug tests came out positive as false positives when someone was on allergy medication such as Sudafed. Since I had allergies and I was taking Sudafed and I was also taking a medicine called Singulair for asthma, I think that there's a possibility that if they ever did a drug test, that there was a possibility there was a false positive on that test because of the allergy medications I was taking. Because I know I wasn't on drugs. But honestly, I don't think they ever drug tested me. All they did was check my insurance, and as long as I had insurance that could keep paying, then they would keep me in there as long as they possibly could. At some point in time, I met this lady that was also a patient at the hospital, and we had a conversation, and I said, look, how do you get out of here? She's like, well, first of all, you need to work your program. I'm like, work my program? She said, yeah, you need to go to meetings. I'm like, whoa, go to meetings? Like, what kind of meetings? And she's like, NA meetings, or Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and AA meetings, NA meetings. I'm like, but I'm not an alcoholic and I'm not an addict. She's like, honey, you're in denial. That's what everyone says. I was like, no, really, I'm still over there trying to prove my innocence. I'm like, I came in this hospital drug-free. I was not on drugs. And she's like, then why are you here? Because everyone else in here is coming off of drugs. I told her, but if I go over there, I'm going to be lying if I say I'm an addict or an alcoholic, because I'm not. And she's like, you want to get out of here, right? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, then you're going to have to lie. You're going to have to tell the doctor that the medication is working. When the psychiatrist talks to you and asks you if it's working, don't tell him that it's not working and that you want to get off the medication, because they're going to think that you're just going to refuse medication. I was a good Christian woman, so I decided at that point that her advice was not going to work because I wasn't going to lie. So I went to the psychiatrist and I told him, no, the medication is not working. I came in here and I was not on drugs, and now I'm being drugged by medical staff, and I don't even think I need to be here. I'm in the wrong place. This is a big mistake. So he made a higher dose of the same medication that I was on, and then I became a complete zombie. At that time, I thought the only way I was going to get out of this hospital was to try to escape. Basically, I was being held captive against my will, and I couldn't understand how that was even legal. I came to the realization that unless I lied, I was not going to get out of there, because they are not going to admit that their program doesn't work, and if I keep saying that it's not working, then I'm never getting out. I didn't want to lie, so I thought the next best thing to do was to try to escape. I'm out of time, so we'll have to talk about that story later. So just imagine you're a Christian. You go on a mission trip because you are sold out to Jesus. You want to save the world, basically. And you go and you get falsely accused by your church. First of all, that's hurtful. And then you get abused by medical staff. How would that make you feel? Well, I was so drugged that I had no feelings anymore. I was a zombie.